and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be my May wrap-up. So I read a total of 16 books in May. 2 of them were rereads. I read a total of 9 physical books and 7 ebooks. I feel like I read a decent amount, but a lot of them were 3 stars. I don't feel like I had a super successful reading month, but I am glad that I did read a bunch of physical books. Hopefully I can read more in June, but I guess it was a pretty decent month. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump straight into the wrap up. So the first book I read was Heartless King by Maya Hughes. This is the 5th and final book in the Kings of Rittenhouse series. This I gave 3 out of 5 stars. It's weird because I really loved this series and I couldn't stop reading, but I gave them all 3 stars. I definitely read this series like at a wrong time. I feel like if I was actually in the right mood, I definitely would have rated them higher, but I feel like in this case it is definitely more a me issue than the books. In general, this series is a new adult college hockey romance series. It follows a bunch of hockey players who are at this one college and they each find love. I feel like as the series goes on, the characters are a little bit more older, but the final book follows Colm and his story. This is a friends to enemies to lovers romance, I would say, and it has one of my favorite tropes of all time, which is the accidental or surprise pregnancy. This is not a spoiler, by the way, it's literally in the blurb. I liked this. I feel like the characters were a little frustrating. I really loved the whole front group and I thought the romances were really great in this whole series. And I do see myself rereading this series at some point in the future. I really enjoyed it. Then I read Rebel by Maria Lu. This is technically the 4th book in the Legends series. I finally read it. I don't know why I decided to pick it up, but I did. And this I gave 4 out of 5 stars. However, I do feel like my 4-star rating is more based on nostalgia than it is on the actual book. I feel like if I were to rate the book itself, it would be a 3-star. This book takes place 10 years after the last book, Champion, and this one focuses more on Day, or Daniel, and his younger brother, Eden. I liked it, but the only parts I really loved about this were obviously Daniel and June's parts. I wanted to see what happened to them. I wanted to see if they finally got the happy ending they deserved. I think that's like the only reason why I gave this book 4 stars. I liked Eden. I liked his story and like his plot, and I thought he was a great character. It felt like it was Legend all over again, just like a shortened version, but I mean it was still fun to be like back in this world and see these characters again. I do feel like it was slightly unnecessary, but I appreciate it anyways, and I am happy I finally read it. The next 3 I did a whole reading vlog on, so I will link that video down below, but I read 3 Nora Roberts novels and I documented the whole experience. This was the first time I read anything by Nora Roberts. So the first one I read was Vision in White, and this one I gave 3 out of 5 stars. This one was pretty fun. It was really cute. This follows our female character who's a photographer and she works with her best friends and they run this wedding company, or like how they host and plan weddings, and she's a photographer and she ends up falling in love with the brother of the bride. It was really cute. I really liked the romance and the characters in the front group. Definitely a great introduction to Nora Roberts in my opinion. Then I read Naked in Death by D.D. Robb, which is Nora's pen name, and this I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I loved this. This was so good. This is a mystery, somewhat thriller, like romance suspense. It follows Eve Dallas, who is a lieutenant, and she is trying to solve this high profile case. She's also dealing with some past issues, some past problems, and she ends up meeting our male character Rourke, who is very dark, very mysterious. She ends up falling in love with him, but there's a lot of issues because he is technically a suspect in her case. It is so fascinating, a little dark. I also thought it was really interesting that it had a futuristic setting. It definitely threw me off a little bit because there was like some weird timelines and then the electronics were a little weird and I was like, what is this? But I feel like it totally worked and I'm excited to see how that progresses throughout the series when I continue it. But I really loved this. It was so good. And then the other Nora Roberts novel that I read was The Next Always, and this I gave 3 out of 5 stars. This was another sweet one. It was very cute. I really liked the characters and the romance. The plot was actually really interesting too. So this follows 3 brothers who are renovating a inn, and they are trying to make it this really unique and special place. And our female character owns the local bookstore and she is also a single mom. It was really cute. I liked it and I definitely will continue this series at some point. Then I read Empress of Poisons by Bree Porter. This is the second book in the Tarkanov Empire series or duology. I'm pretty sure Bree is writing more with these characters and I don't know if they're going to be part of the same series or like another spin-off. Anyways, this I gave 3 out of 5 stars. Even though I didn't rate it very high, I didn't rate the first one very high either. I also gave that one 3 stars because I felt like the first one was so similar to her other series, and this one took a very different turn, which I liked, but I also didn't at the same time. I really expected a bloody ending, to be honest. I expected the ending to be very different. This is a dark mafia romance. Basically, the first book follows Elena, who is a widow, and she makes a deal with this other mafia family to ensure her safety, and she kind of helps the family. I'm not explaining it very well, but I do feel like this series is really interesting and I'm excited to see Bree continue this world and these characters. Then I read Dear Love, I Hate You by Elia Greenwood. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I wanted to read more bully romances. I'm trying to find more that are not reverse harem, and this one I had heard was a bully romance. It was decent. I don't feel like it was really much of a bully romance. I feel like it was a little bit more just hate to love in general. This follows our female character who starts kind of like this anonymous letter pen pal type of situation, and she accidentally like leaves it in a book, and the male character finds it and writes back, and they kind of have like this back and forth, and she ends up finding out who it is before he knows. I liked the beginning half more, and I do feel like towards the middle it was going in a different direction. I did like the characters and I did like the writing. I just wasn't into the plot that much, and I don't know, I like my bully romances to be a little bit more intense and a little bit darker. If you want more of like a tamer bully romance or something that's more just like straight up contemporary and that doesn't have any super dark elements, I definitely would recommend this one. Then I read Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I was really excited for this. Everybody was giving it like 5 stars. A lot of early reviewers were raving about it. And maybe this just could have been my mindset again, but sadly I just didn't love it as much as everybody else did. I did like the characters and the writing, but I feel like this was kind of another similar thing, is that it went in a different direction. I think it lacked a little bit in the romance, which I know is weird, but I often felt like it was a lot of telling and not showing. I feel like I expected this to be just straight up a contemporary, and then it kind of went in a dark direction, which I was totally fine with, but it kind of threw me off. And then I personally just didn't like the dark aspect. I feel like it was very predictable, but I might read the second book, we'll see. Then I read The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. This I started a year ago probably. I started it like last fall, and for some reason I put it down, but I finally picked it back up and finished it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. This follows Lena, who has to work on a business proposition or like a business proposal with her ex-fiance's brother. It was really fun, really sweet, but it definitely had like a serious tone to it. I definitely want to pick up the next book, which is Dean's story. I'm very excited to read his. I liked the characters and the romance. I do feel like Lena annoyed me a little bit, but like I totally understand why she was the way she was. I really loved her family too. I just thought it was a really fun and entertaining romance, and yeah, as I said, I'm very excited for the next one. Then I read Secret Lucidity by E.K. Blair. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay. It was definitely a lot different than what I expected it to be honest. This is also a exclusive cover. This is from the Mystic box. I'll link that unboxing video if you do want to watch it. This follows our female character who is struggling with the loss of a loved one, and she kind of leans on her swim coach. So it is a forbidden romance. I feel like this had a lot of potential, but it became very dark. It was kind of depressing. Like, not gonna lie, it was kind of sad. The female character is dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of changes in her life. She has a very shitty parent. Also, like, triggers for self-harm in this book as well. I just feel like it wasn't what I wanted it to be, and I don't blame the book at all. But I also feel like the romance was barely there, and it was more just like our female character dealing with a lot of things. I definitely see myself reading more from E.K. Blair. I have like 2 of her other books on my TBR, so I definitely want to pick something else up by her. Maybe actually like read something darker that I'm in the right mind frame for. Then I read Fallen Jester by Devney Perry. This is the 5th book in the Tin Gypsy series, and this I gave 3 out of 5 stars. There is something about this series that I'm not fully loving anymore, and it really makes me sad. The first 2 books I loved, but the rest of the series just kind of went downhill for me. I don't really know how to explain it. This whole series follows a retired or like broken up motorcycle club, and it involves this small town and a murder and a mystery and an old rival motorcycle club. So this is finally Leo's book. I was very excited for his book, especially because this has one of my favorite tropes, which is a accidental pregnancy. I liked both characters and I liked the romance, but I just feel like there was something missing, and I can't really explain it, to be honest. Leo did annoy me a little bit. He was very stubborn, very frustrating, but eventually he got it together. I really love these characters, and I love the founded family, and I'm actually really excited to read the last book, and hopefully I love that one. Then I read Floored by Carla Sorensen. This is the 3rd book in the Word Sisters series, and this I gave 3 out of 5 stars. This one was another accidental pregnancy romance. This one was pretty cute and I did like it, but it was kind of boring. It had a lot of elements that I loved. It follows a twin, and she is going to Europe to study and be part of this master's program, and she ends up falling in love with a British football player, and there's a 9-year age gap. I just feel like the characters both had so much baggage, and like they just didn't know what they wanted, and it became really frustrating. And then I feel like, again, not much happened. I really love the whole Ward family. I think they're just such a great, fun, loving family, and I love reading about them, but their books aren't super special. They're fun and they're cute, but they are a little boring. The next one I read was Well Played by Jen DeLuca. This I gave 3 out of 5 stars. This was a little disappointing. I didn't love this as much as the first book. This is Stacy's story, and she is lonely. She's kind of feeling like she wants to finally just have a relationship, and she thinks that contacting one of her friends with benefits and just telling him how she feels more for him than what they had agreed on, and she decides to message him about this on his band's Facebook group. He ends up responding, and they kind of start this back and forth. I'm not a huge fan of like catfishing romances, which is what this is. It's very obvious from the beginning, like who Stacy's gonna end up with and like what the situation is. It's weird because she wasn't really mad when it happened. Like, she was upset, but like she got over it very quickly. If I was telling this person like my secrets and like all of these things that were bothering me and it wasn't actually the person I thought it was, that would be upsetting. Like, I don't know why she wasn't more upset. She kind of just like shook it off. Like, I do understand because like the male character was a nice guy, but I feel like that's not really an excuse. I don't know, I just didn't connect to the romance, and I liked the characters, but I just didn't like the plot and what their romance was or how it started, to be honest. I feel like this would have been way better if it was just like a friends to lovers. I think that would have been better in my opinion, but I really want to read the third book, so I'm very excited for that one. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. I've been talking for way too long, but the next book I read was a reread for me, and that is Thoughtless by S.C. Stevens. Yeah, I read this back in 2015 and gave it 3 stars. I really wanted to reread this and I decided to just finally do it, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really loved this. I didn't really like it all that much the first time I read it. Obviously I gave it 3 stars, but I talked about this book in a video a long time ago that I made, and it was books or authors I wanted to give a second chance, and this was one of them. I wanted to reread this to see if I would like it now. So I just went ahead and started rereading it. It was very spontaneous of me. I just grabbed it one night and I was like, I'm gonna start rereading this and just see how I feel about it now. And I loved it. I am obsessed with it. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. I am waiting for my physical copies of book 2 and book 3 to come in the mail. I really just want to continue like right away. Back when I first read this, obviously I didn't like it that much, so I never continued. I think one of the many reasons why I didn't like this is because it was very similar to a lot of the other books I was reading at the time. It just felt kind of like I was reading the same things over and over again, and so to me it just didn't stand out. And because it's been a while since I've read this type of book or like books similar to it, I think that's why it stood out to me this time around. This follows Kira, who moves across the country with her boyfriend Denny, and they move into this apartment with Kellen, who is a local musician, local rock star, and he is friends with her boyfriend Denny, and they decide to rent a room from him and just live with him. Denny is working at his dream job and Kira is going to this top university. And then something kind of happens that slowly tears Denny and Kira apart. She starts kind of falling for Kellen because he's there and they spend a lot more time together, but she is technically still with Denny. So there is cheating in this book. If that bothers you, definitely don't read this because it's very dramatic. It's very over the top, but I loved it. Again, I was reading a lot of the same books back in the day, so that's why I didn't like this, but also Kira really annoyed me. But reading this now, I like understand her more. I feel like I see why she acted the way she did, and my heart just broke for Kellen all the time, and I felt so sorry for him. I just feel like he deserved so much better, but I really loved them together, and this romance was really addicting, and I'm very excited to continue this series. I can't stop thinking about it. I just loved this, and I'm so glad I reread it. Then I reread Wicked by Jennifer L. Ermintrout. I first read this back in 2014, and I was rereading it because the Passionflix adaptation was coming out, and I did a whole video on this, so I will link that down below if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts. This, upon rereading it, I did give it 4 stars, which is the same rating I gave when I first read it. This follows our female character Ivy, who is part of the Order, where they hunt and kill fae. And one night while she's hunting and doing her job, she comes across this fae that doesn't really look like a normal fae that she's hunted before. And turns out he is what they call an ancient, so it's like a super bad fae. And then she ends up meeting Ren, who is new to town, and he's also part of the Order. And they team up to find out what is happening with these ancients, why these super bad fae are in town, and like what's happening. I really love this trilogy. It's really fun, and I'm really glad I reread it. and I can't wait to eventually reread the other books. And then the last book I read in May was A Kiss for a Kiss by Helena Hunting. This is the 4th book in the All In series, and this I gave 3 out of 5 stars. This one was okay. I didn't love it as much as the other books in this series. This follows Jake and Hannah, which I was very confused on who they were. Like, I couldn't remember who they were, but Jake is Queenie's dad, and he is the general manager of the hockey team, and Hannah is King / Ryan's mom. King / Ryan and Queenie are married, so basically their parents start hooking up. This is also a surprise pregnancy romance, and both characters are in their 40s. So it's actually really interesting and something I don't think I've ever read from before, but it was a little boring. I don't feel like much happened. I don't feel like I fully connected with the romance. I liked both characters. I feel like they were so cautious about other people's feelings that like we didn't really get to see their feelings for each other as much, and in a way felt very adulty because they were making very adult and serious decisions, and they weren't like young characters who were very impulsive and like making drastic decisions. Like, it was a very tame romance in a way, but I still liked it. I just didn't fully love it as much as the other books. So those were all the books I read in May. Let me know what books you read in May and which one was your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, follow me on all my other social media, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!